people have been melting down over PalWorld's success, and if you don't like this game, that's perfectly fine, but there are journalist hacks writing article after article talking about how people shouldn't enjoy this game, and that it simply isn't good enough to be this controversial. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, game journalists need gamers to read their articles in order for them to get paid, for them to make a living, and for them to not have to go and work somewhere like McDonald's. So you would think that they would actually be in tune with the gaming audience that they're trying to capture. And of course, everyone is human, right? They're going to have their own opinions that sometimes a lot of people do not agree with. But in the case of the gamers, the Kotakus, most of the time people think they're completely and utterly wrong. And this is a TheGamer article where they are completely trashing PalWorld because, of course, the writer is a giant Pokemon stan. And it's fine. Again, if you really love Pokemon and you think that it's superior to PalWorld, that's perfectly fine, but you still cannot accept the fact that PalWorld is just what's hot right now. Games come and games go, and maybe in 2 years nobody will remember PalWorld, nobody will be talking about PalWorld anymore, but at this point, I highly doubt it, but it says, I wrote last week that PalWorld could be one of the best Pokemon games in years, offering a fresh perspective on a tired series that can't let a 30-year-old formula go. I was wrong. Only a week later, PalWorld has already grown dull and repetitive, yet it's the second most played game on Steam, sold 7 million copies in 5 days. Now they've sold 9 million copies in 8 days, and is all the internet is talking about. So at first, when they thought it was just going to be a fad and a game that lasted for only a few days, they loved it, and they thought that it was great, and it had a lot of, you know, new features and mechanics going for it. But now that it's actually withstood at least a small test of time, they are furious and they're calling it dull and repetitive. I personally have been playing PalWorld. I've streamed it several times. I'm still playing it off stream, and I think it's really enjoyable. Is it perfect? Not at all, but it's an early access $30 game made by a group of indie developers, and they deserve a lot of praise for it. It has been really fun, and yes, Pokemon has been stale recently. I mean, they cannot let a 30-year-old formula go, and while that formula has worked for them in a lot of titles, it's time to, reinvent the schematic of what they're doing. It's time for them to kind of look at their plans and judge based on what people actually want. It says, though, shovelware clones of better games that shamelessly rip off the biggest IP are plastered across mobile ads all the time, and we see an unending wave of such games dredge onto the shores of Steam's new tab every week, but they don't make nearly the dent that PalWorld did. Yeah, that's because PalWorld is not some shovelware clone. PalWorld has mechanics that Pokemon's never had. Yes, the creature capture mechanic is similar. There are spheres that you capture a creature, but besides that, they're very different. Pokemon doesn't have base building. Pokemon doesn't have survival. Pokemon does not have, 32-player servers. They do not have any of that. And looking at the roadmap of PalWorld, there are several things that are also going to be different, like PvP. I mean, that's going to be massively different. They've also said they're going to be revamping the building system as time goes on. Like, they are just not comparable, except for at its core, it's got a creature capture mechanic. Like, yes, that's similar, but similar doesn't mean things like copyright infringement. It also says it's the perfect recipe for mediocrity to blow up. Oh no, people actually having fun with the game that I think is ripping another off. We can't have that, so I have to sit and write this awful article. I mean, it's pretty pathetic. We're coming down from the holidays. Survival games are huge. It's known as Pokemon with guns and has been roped into the console wars. Xbox fans use it to mock PlayStation. Yes, I do think that it is kind of funny that this has reignited a little bit of conversation surrounding the console wars, but let's be honest, there are still exclusive games on both of these platforms, and that's just the way that it's going to be for the foreseeable future, even though there are rumors that, Xbox kind of wants to end the console wars. That's really not anywhere in sight at this moment. But it says, Put aside the drama and controversy, and it's a very bland game. It's clearly not, given the fact that 9 million plus people, probably 10 million at this point, have purchased it, have been playing it, and the fact that it is still dominating the Steam charts. And look at this, it is still growing every single day since launch. Yesterday was the highest day for players. The day before was the highest day for players. Like, it has been consistently growing. That is not the sign of a bland knockoff game. And yes, you might find it to be a little disappointing. You might say, oh yeah, it's just not as polished as I want, doesn't have certain mechanics that I want, which is fine, that's your opinion. But the problem is that you are a video game journalist who is saying that 10 plus million people are wrong, and basically that we're dumb for liking this title. Like, it's just pathetic that this is what you have decided to write about. Out of all of the things in the gaming industry that you could be covering, this is what you've decided to do, is say that it's a very bland game and everyone who likes it is just wrong. The world is unbelievably generic with no real identity of its own, like you're playing Ark inside of Breath of the Wild. The most interesting landmarks are the haphazardly placed ruins, but players have pointed out that they look suspiciously like Elden Rings. The only thing that I have seen that could even remotely be compared to Elden Rings are the desolate churches, and while Elden Ring had those, there's been plenty of games that have had like ruins of churches and like ruins as quick travel points or notable points on the map. Like, that's also nothing that Elden Ring specifically has done, and this game has been in the works for years at this point. So yes, Elden Ring did come out in that span of time, but also they were working on it even before Elden Ring came out. So I don't really know what they're trying to get at here. Oh no, it's an Elden Ring copy, it's an Ark copy, it's a Breath of the Wild copy, it's a Pokemon copy. Yes, again, it's got similar mechanics or aesthetics to many games that already exist, but it's not one game that can be called a clone of. Leveling up increases arbitrary stats and gives you points in a skill tree to unlock crafting recipes, grinding progressions to a halt, and the gameplay itself feels floaty and clunky all at once. What I am surprised at by is that anyone cares about it. It has loyalists swatting away any criticism online, but it also has cemented itself as much as Baldur's Gate 3 did. Now, the problem here is that they are saying that loyalists are swatting away any criticism online, but anybody like this journalist hack who has any criticism is trying their best to tank this game and to attack the people who actually like it. It also says this resounding popularity and infamy for what amounts to any other Tuesday on the Steam store is baffling. This is not any other Tuesday. These numbers are not any other Tuesday. Does this hack not understand that there is steamcharts.com where you can go and see and get a rough estimate on how many people are actually playing a game at any given point? It has been at number 1 since day 3 of launch, or day 2 of launch. It has been at the top games on top of the top games chart for over a week at this point, and it's just hilarious to see how far this journalist is actually stretching to get their point across that PalWorld isn't good enough to be controversial, when clearly millions of people are thoroughly enjoying their time in the game, and this is just another desperate attempt by the mainstream media to bury a game that they personally do not like. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, and of course if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.